Hey guys, AJ from the Moto Academy here. Quick masterclass. This is something that I've practiced forever and I don't know what to call it. I used to call it Ryan Mills style because when I was little racing 50s in New York, Walden, Diamondback, Ace, all the local tracks in New York, there was somebody named Ryan Mills who was extremely fast. He was on a 125 when I was on 50s, and every time he would jump, he would go straight up and down and like get his head way over by the front fender, stretching stuff on his 125. And I thought it was the coolest thing. So this video is going to teach you how to do a stretch like that, which can be useful on any jump that you need to get that extra bit of yank, that bit more height, that little bit more distance. And this is something that I've practiced since I was on 50s and on a BMX bike, and then kind of transitioned all the way through. It's less useful on a 450 because they're so fast I can clear just about everything pretty easy. But on the old 125, I find myself stretching quite a bit. So we're going to run you guys through it really quick, show you the do's and don'ts, and then we're also going to take my buddy Jake and see if we can take his stretches and take them a little bit to the next level. Okay, so step one is recognizing that the stretch movement is a preload. So a preload, you're going to compress as much as you can down into the bike in the transition of the jump. The idea here is you're trying to create as much compression and rebound as possible to get that pop. So a stretch, a preload, a seat bounce almost, it's the same thing. So the approach is important in that you want to be in the right gear that your bike is going to really be able to create that power. Not like I would teach most people to approach with speed, maintain that throttle all the way through, try to soak up the obstacle. That's not going to accomplish the stretch movement here. So approach in that gear that you can really get the torque out of the bike. In this specific obstacle, I'm in third gear. Jake, are you in third as well? And what I find is right when I get in the transition is right when this bike finds the most power, which is exactly what I want. So what you'll see in slow motion is I compress down with the bike into the takeoff as I really ramp up the RPMs. If you think of the RPMs as a graph, as I go up the jump face, the RPMs are ramping up. That's super important. As I get to the top of the takeoff, I'm straightening as the bike is unloading to allow the bike to get as much rebound and pop as possible. Simultaneously, this is where it gets tricky, I am pinching my shoulder blades together and driving my head as far forward as I can. So it's almost a pulling movement. And what that pulling movement will do is it brings your head forward and it brings the front end up, 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 up. I mean, really as high as you want to get it. So a good way to learn this is to practice just getting the chest and head forward. When you start to get really comfortable, you can advance to the point where you start touching your chin on your front fender. And then when you get really good, and you want to get more, you can start going beside your front fender, almost looking like it's a kiss of death in a sense, but the feet stay on. So you're doing that pulling movement when you get in the air, the head comes forward, the bike will come more upright, and then when you're ready to get the bike down to level, what's nice is all you have to do is push the bike down away from you, and it will come up and it will be pushed right back away. It's quite nice. So what you'll find is you can do quite a swing of movement without even having to pull the clutch in and tap the rear brake. But always keep in mind and make sure before you even get to trying this skill set that you know how to pull the clutch in and tap the rear brake to get that extra bit of adjustment if you need it. What I'll do sometimes, and I'm sure I'll do it throughout this video as you're watching the B-roll, is I'll get that bike nice and high, and sometimes if I get it too high, I'll not only do that pull forward and push movement, I'll also pull the clutch in and tap the rear brake just to get an extra little adjustment out of that bike. One big thing to remember, when I was little and used to practice this, to really get that bike to go straight up and down, you have to allow your feet to float off the foot pegs. But you don't want your feet to be too loose to where they float off the bike completely and you end up in a Superman mode. So as you allow the feet to float, make sure that you're squeezing your toes at the stopping point. So step of progression number one, you let your feet float off the pegs and you'll probably squeeze your toes midway up the frame. Do that 10 times, however many times you need to get comfortable. That will probably allow for your head to get close to the front fender. To get your head a little closer to the front fender or touching the front fender, your feet will have to float a little higher. Now you'll be squeezing maybe that plastic under your seat with your toes. This can get scary, but just practice it as it feels comfortable. If you want to start advancing to, top G level stretch mode where our head's going beside the front fender, we need to allow our feet to float all the way up, and I squeeze my toes on my seat. Is actually how I do that. With my wing seat, it's kind of a little cheat code. I can squeeze my toes under the wing seat, which is nice, hold them nice and in there. And that's essentially it. So right now Jake's getting that level 1.5 stretch mode progression. We're gonna see if we can get him advanced through, and hopefully that's helpful. If you guys have any questions about absolutely anything, make sure you go inside the Moto Academy app. This video is probably already in there. If it's on YouTube, go to club.themotoacademy.com, send me a message in the app. I can walk anybody through any process. I could also tell you whether you're ready to do it or not. A lot of people will watch this video and want to try it. They send me a video of where they are in their progression, and immediately I say, not yet. Let's do X, Y, and Z before we get to that stretch.
Hey guys, before we get back to the video, Moto Academy is doing a world tour in 2024 and we're releasing dates every single week. So head over to themotoacademy.com if you want to train with myself and the Moto Academy. If you didn't see a location near you last time you were on the website, pop over to themotoacademy.com again, because like I said, we're posting new dates multiple times a week, every single week, and we're going all over the world. Themotoacademy.com, go check it out. Back to the video.
All right, so I'll give him some leeway. That face was totally regroomed before that, so that was his kind of practice run. The one thing Jake will have to keep in mind is he doesn't have to approach that fast. That ended up kind of pushing him through. He could actually approach slower. So same issue. Approaching a little too fast, not able to get that pop. Slow down a little bit in the transition. Force yourself to get that pop. You're approaching so fast that you're kind of just pushing through it. Okay, so that's where he's at in progression just about, right? And so what that is, so I don't want to screw your flow up. So that was a very timid version. That's kind of where you're at when you do them. Couple of things. Don't be afraid to pull harder. Let the bike needs to float up higher. Your bike, if you look at the angle of it, you're like this. It's not straight up enough. So pull harder, let the bike come up more, and then really force yourself to do the movement. That bike is so light, you should be able to toss that thing around like it's a toy. Yeah. And then just hinge more. Hinge at your hips and get that chin right to the front fender.
Pop up more?
Pop up more, and you can enter super slow when you do it. Now on this bike, sometimes it's sketchy because I'll just catch power band out of nowhere and I can almost backflip by accident. But on that bike, it's super easy. You could come in slow and then just, yeah, right last second. And that's the key, is like, you can't really do this movement that exaggerated until you start to get that bike more and more upright. But just have the finger on the clutch and be ready to pull the clutch in and tap the rear brake if you get a little too straight up and down. Yeah, just keep working into it. Like, don't do anything that scares you. I'm gonna scoot over a little more, just in case. Whoa! Oh my God. That was not due to my instruction. That was just like, he got squirrely down at the bottom. Yeah. Wow. Still entering too fast. It's creating to where if he were to preload that and yank it the way I want him to, he'd end up in the bottom. Still too fast. Still too fast. Slow down on that entry. Get that last second power. On that bike, it can catch power band suddenly. But that's why you have a finger in the clutch. Better, now he's just got to actually compress and unload. Yeah, I know. All right, so I know what your guys' major issue is. It's not your fault either. It's the takeoff right now. Can you feel what's happening? So can you shovel some dirt into that hole?
Yeah, that's what I was.
Because what's happening is you're getting the compression and rebound in that hole.
Yeah, not up here.
So then the bike unloads and your suspension's light the whole carpet. So you're trying to do the preload, but your suspension's unloaded, so you can't preload. Well,
in between it?
So leave it as is, but then this, I'll just say that this is like level 10 difficulty of doing a stretch, because what that means is you have to soak up the kicker and then very quickly, like, actually look at you can see where I'm accelerating. Can you see that?
Yeah, it skips right here.
Yeah.
And then...
Can you see that with the camera, Grant? That's actually pretty interesting. So you can see where my back tire began the acceleration. Can you point to it so that he can see on the camera, Aiden?
Yeah, right here.
Right there. You can see exactly where I began throttle to create that real quick. And look, it's only a bike length, if that. I quickly, and get that explosive rebound, compression rebound. That's something that I have to do in Supercross a lot, right? Because our takeoffs are so short and steep that you have to do that real quick blip of the throttle. But it's not easy. So be easy on yourselves, because this is not a great jump to practice the stretch. Well, that video devolved quickly. I'm gonna blame it on, actually, you know whose fault that was? That's driver Jamie's fault. Somehow the rut formed super deep. The problem was wherever there wasn't carpet, the rut was getting super crazy deep, and it just turned into a whoop section. So keep practicing it. What I would do is come here on a day where you can get that thing properly groomed, and then keep practicing, because between you and Aiden, you guys are close. And then what's cool is when you get good at that, especially since you spend a lot of time on a 125, that's a useful thing to know how to do.
Yeah.
When I was on 85, 65 super minis, 125s, you're stretching stuff all the time. So keep practicing it. Those of you watching, make sure you do it safely. The biggest thing with jumping is I always say, like, you have to progress incredibly slowly. Everybody always asks, how do I build confidence with jumping? Well, the answer is simple. It's repetition. And it's not 10 jumps. It's more like 10,000 jumps. Like, this is a difficult place to start because it's so inconsistent, but you want to build all those skill sets the best you can. Okay, make sure you guys subscribe, Moto Academy. Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it. Okay, toodles.